Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here. This is obviously a big honor for us to have you here. And what we wanted to do is to give you a perspective about how we view the auto market. There's a lot of changes going on, and I think it is just one of the most exciting and fascinating sectors and industries to work in. And I've been now in around about 20 years in this industry. It is always said that it is a rather conservative industry, not a lot of things are happening, but the truth is exactly the opposite. I mean, a lot of things happening, and specifically also not only in Asia, but also in the last period of time because of a lot of changes in consumer behavior. And what we wanted to do is to show you how we are approaching this one, and we have two parts actually. One part will be mine, and I will talk a little bit about, guide you through a little bit about the automotive market, not specifically in Asia, something that we observe all over the world. I'm responsible for the global practice, so I thought also I share with you a little bit the whole view of the world, how we see it, and afterwards I think then we'll guide you through more concretely about how we're approaching then specific issues. So how do I go on here? Just,
Yeah,
just the buttons like this on the old-fashioned way. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let's do it this way. So, as I said, I think one of the interesting things with automotive is that it's a sort of paradox, because overall speaking, if you look, the motor industry is doing reasonably well. The world production is growing slightly, so we have around about 5% more this year than we had in 2011, and for 2013 even we have a projection that we have around about 3% growth. But obviously it is very different, because we have the Asian markets, the European markets, and the US market with very different types of developments and different modes of developments, obviously. And the developing markets are growing, huge pent-up demand for car ownership. Europe is declining, US is recovering. But I think what is important here is that all these markets have one thing in common. And what is in common is that the consumers change. There is a change of needs assessment and expectations towards the vehicles. And it doesn't matter if we are in a mature market or in a developing market, these things are happening. Obviously, in the mature markets, we have a shift towards the car becomes a cost-effective mobility, means of mobility. And in the growing economies, we have a very quick consumer maturation, and they are becoming more demanding in terms of what they're expecting from a car. In essence, all consumers become more critical towards vehicles, and we need to obviously address this, whatever we're doing, either we or you as the car manufacturers or the dealers. Now, also one issue I think is very important that we keep in mind is that we have a sophistication of market offer in the market. Historically, if you look into the mature markets, they grew from simple offerings into very complex offerings. The developing economies very quickly had, I would almost say, a leapfrog into this growing and very sophisticated offering. And what we see today is that we have a variety of, a big number of crossover body types in the markets with a lot of models and model versions, and consumers have to navigate through that one and often are overwhelmed with that one, obviously. So this has to do with the fact that what we see is that the consumers more and more express also their individual needs. It's very specific to their life situation, and they are looking a very specific product and car in order to cater to these needs then afterwards. And the third aspect I think that we have to keep in mind is that we have, well, almost a revolution of the digital world. Because we have more sophisticated offers, we have much more choice out there. The consumers also need to have more information, and obviously the digital and the internet helps them to get this information. We have here a figure from 2011 that says, and this is a survey coming from including mature markets and developing markets like China and Brazil, which says that 94% of all new car buyers are using the internet actually in order to find information and to share information with social medias, with forums, with networking sites, etc., etc. And here again, it doesn't matter if we are in a mature market or if we are in a developing market. Internet and digital has become so important that we can no longer ignore it, of course. Now, this means also that the consumers are always connected, but it also means that consumers are overwhelmed with information and they look for relevance, they look for benefit, but also look for enjoyment and for fun. And so this means basically that in order to make an impact here, you need to interact with people and you need to engage with people pretty much on an individual level also. And if we are putting these three things together, we have consumer autonomy, we have of course an intensified automotive offering landscape, we have a digital world with all its new technologies, then we have today an empowered consumer more than ever, because he can indeed dictate with the needs and with the decision to buy the different vehicles in the market. Now, when we are translating this, and obviously in market research we are looking specifically to the consumer decision-making process, and when we are translating this, then we see that what we often and long time refer to this marketing funnel, where we say, well, consumers start at a certain point and then systematically eliminate different choices that they have, and then they come down to 1, 2, 3 vehicles in their shopping list, and then they make the decision. This is no longer true. We are now in a journey, and basically, if you see here, the consumer is going through a series of different loops. Obviously, it starts with having the need to buy a car, to have a first consideration set, but then afterwards, until he goes to the dealership and until he goes to decide on which vehicle he or she will buy, he is confronted obviously with a lot of information, with a lot of new discoveries probably which require reconsideration. So again, it is a lot of different loops, and obviously this is something that is an ongoing process and makes it obviously quite complex also. Now, what we want to do today is obviously also to look a little bit more into the second part of the journey, when we come to the dealer experience, and what we see in the different research that we're doing is that although obviously it has become much more complex to navigate through the information in the market and to switch from this funnel into a journey with all the different loops, dealer performance remains extremely critical, because this is, at the end of the day, nevertheless, the moment of truth, where people are then really making their decision. Now, with all these changes, and I think this is where you are confronted as much as we are confronted as the ones who want to give the information to you to better understand the market, is that all these changes are inscribing themselves into an evolution. Changes are dramatic, but what we have done in the past does not mean is no longer valid today. But we need to find new opportunities and new methods to get closer to the consumer. And this is why it is a little bit this piece in the puzzle to find in order to complete the whole picture of the modern and the changed consumer. But I would also point out that it's no longer about only understanding what the consumers want to have. It is about understanding what is exciting for the consumer, because this is the only way where you can engage him and where you can interact with him, or with her, of course. And we have a lot of areas in automotive. If you think about, we start with the design perception of a new car, obviously a lot of things that can excite people there. We go through the image, the quality, the dealer performance, and also, of course, more and more the post-purchase experience, because this is important for the feedback afterwards, for the recommendation. So there's a lot of areas where we already understand pretty well what consumers want, what they need, what probably they are requiring even more, but we do not still enough know what is really exciting to them. And what can we do in order to make them excited and to keep them a little bit closer where we are. One example that I found is interesting and fits very well here. You know the Audi City, a showroom in London, recently opened. You have heard about that one? This is basically the first digital showroom. They call it like that one. And this is a showroom in London that Audi opened, and they have, as you see in this picture, 1 or 2 cars, and then around them basically a multimedia interactive area with very large screens where you can basically display as a consumer when you go there all the possible color and vehicle configuration options and choose them and see them on live screens, big screens, and see what the car looks like, and all these different things. And why I think the example is fitting here is because it is something that combines what we traditionally did, namely, have consumers come into the showroom and experience the cars, but we add to the experience basically with all the modern technology. So we leverage our knowledge about the individual consumer needs. We have the life-size display, which is obviously overwhelming. We can market all the different after-sales and mobility services, and obviously when the salespeople talk to people, they can complement all this also with the digital device that they have around. However, and this is the point, it is a comprehensive approach to the consumers, but I mean, at the end of the day, the virtual excitement, if you will, can never replace the real life excitement. So feeling, touching, smelling the car, sitting in the car, having the experience of driving is still important. And this is why obviously dealerships are and will still be important in the future, but think about the opportunity that offers to engage with the consumer on a really very individual level. And this can make a total difference to what we have seen before, and obviously makes also an important difference to competitors in order to get this competitive advantage. And if we think about, just quickly go back to this consumer journey and think about the important decision a car purchases as opposed to going to the supermarket and buy some groceries, and how important the investments are, then obviously it is important to treat the consumers like that. And if we go back to the consumer journey and just pick out the latter part of this journey, we think about the information gathering, the website, how easy is it to navigate, how easy is it to find relevant information. If I find information, is it easy maybe also making an appointment with the dealership? This is an important aspect that we have to look at in order to improve the service and understand the service and the expectations that they have. When we look into the dealer visit itself, the question is, is the visitor and the potential consumer customer expected there? Do we have all the devices around to give him the maximum of product experience? And afterwards, obviously, in terms of after sales also, we have the requirement that we keep in touch with the customer, that the service visit reminder is sent out, all these different types of things that in many cases today, of course, are already implemented and more or less well translated, but still everyone is doing it, and the question is how can we do it better in order to make a competitive difference. And what is required actually is that whatever you do out there, that you have a visibility whether it is working well, but the second thing, much more important also, is that it is according to what the consumers are expecting, and not only what they're expecting, but is it something also that makes them excited about being in this business relationship with you and getting basically the best out of the brand and the product that is expected. Now, if we are putting this into our context, then we are living today in a socially networked mobile world. Point is that everyone and everything is connected. Things change constantly, and it is much more important also is that not only that things are exchanged, but contents are made. And this is so important for when it comes to recommendations, when it comes to people talking to other people. What are they talking to the other people, and do we have actually, are they talking positively or negatively about the different things? And this means that transparency increases incredibly. Demand levels at the same time are rising because people have access to much more different things. Action and reaction times are also shortening, actually, not increasing, but accelerating and shortening. And afterwards, well, yes, the good news, but most importantly, the bad news is traveling very fast. So in order to have this under control, I think it is important that we have continuous updates and we have speedy updates about what is happening out there. And I think speed is a very vital qualities in order then to interact very quickly and to rectify if ever you have dysfunctions. And the key of all that one is engagement and interaction. This is true for you, but this is also true for us as market researchers. And how would we do that? And what do we have to do as market researchers in order to really address this in a better way? Is that we need to shift also our focus from what we would say rather a traditional market research into what we're calling a socialized research. And socialized research, again, is nothing that it is completely different from what we have done before, but it is an enhancement, an extrapolation of what we have done before. And to give you a few examples, typically what we do and what we have done before is that we talk to people, to a target group, and then we are averaging out the results, and then we are presenting results to our clients. So what we need to do more now is that we talk to communities of people, and that we are much more individualized. We need to focus on the individual needs, and we need to understand basically for each of the persons, what do they want and what do they need, and how can we improve the service for them better. Then afterwards, obviously, often we have one-directional researchers. We are asking questions. We do it over time, but the key word now, it becomes that we do it in the right time. And this means basically in a just-in-time mode, which for us is challenging because we need to feedback also very quickly so that there can be a very, very, very quick action. And obviously, we need to go into dialogue and not into a monologue situation. All is very dynamic because also think about the fact that we are asking, we are preparing a question, we are asking a question, but things are evolving over time, so why not having a dynamic approach in order to to make sure that we can really capture all the necessary and all the relevant issues. And then often we want to have people think about things and give us structured answers, while we want to have much more unstructured, spontaneous, unreflected things. So these are different types that relevant elements in our market research that we have to do in order to move forward, and Ben afterwards will show us a little bit how we can do this in a concrete way. And in order to know the consumers better, I think what is extremely important is that we also keep in mind that the world has become very complex with a lot of information sources. So in order to extract all these things, it's not only about the survey itself that we're doing, but also that we are introducing, well, passive data or non-survey data in order to understand more comprehensively the things. And mobile is the center of the world now. So we need to make sure that we can at any time connect with the consumers and get their input and their information, obviously giving them also input and information. And then we talked about the fact that we need to fast turnaround, we need to engage, and we need to do things in real time. And finally, I think we also have a lot of data that we have to bring together in order to have more insights, to understand simply the complicated and the complexification of the demands out there much better. And I would pass to Ben then to give us an update on the newscast.
Yeah,
okay, thank you.
Is it different from?
Same deck, I think.
Same one. Thanks. Okay, thanks, Klaus. Just to introduce myself first, my name's Ben Llewellyn. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur. I look after part of the business within Ipsos that's called, commonly referred to as enterprise feedback management, or gathering the voice of the customer. So it's within, you can see, Ipsos Loyalty. Ipsos Loyalty looks at areas like CSIs. I'm sure you're all familiar with the term CSI, mystery shopping, and in particular, in this case, transactional research. So what I want to take you through today is really new ways that we're talking to our clients' customers and helping their business. Klaus, many of the points that Klaus mentioned in terms of getting data in real time, being relevant to your customers, in terms of how we talk to them, not keeping them too long when we do talk to them, and how that can feed back into your business, either at a brand level or at a dealership level, and really help you improve the service that you provide. So we'll talk about that, and then Richard, my colleague, who's based in Hong Kong, is going to take you through the actual process of how we do this and how we execute it. And then I'll just wrap up with a few case studies to demonstrate to you where we've applied this in our business throughout the world, within the automotive category. Of course, we apply this to different service categories as well, so financial services, telecommunications, but automotive is certainly a key focus for us. So really, where I want to start is what we refer to and have been referring to for the last year or so as the new normal. And this is building on what Klaus was talking about earlier, which is where our consumers, our customers, or your customers, are constantly connected in one way or another. And where this is important for us as market researchers is if they have a way of being contacted all the time, it provides us, on your behalf, to contact these people and ask them what experiences they're having or have they just had with your brands, and were they satisfied and happy with those experiences. And traditionally, market research perhaps hasn't really done that. We've been a little bit slow in talking to people, and the results that come back to you can be weeks, in some cases months later, and it's too late for you to take any action in the business. So what we know we have to do in this day and age is really connect with them in a relevant way, in a way that they can enjoy and that they can see there's benefit from, but also that they can see they're entering into a dialogue with you as a brand rather than just waiting for you to throw messages at them and then they can answer but they can't enter a conversation with you. So what we're talking about now is using research to actually have a conversation with these customers, ones that are particularly happy with you, and indeed ones that, and probably more importantly, those that are very dissatisfied with you and not happy with the service that you provided. So, this has really profound implications on how we approach our work and how we are recommending to our clients that they approach their work. As I said, old methods aren't as engaging, they're not as relevant, and we need to adapt as well. And to build again on what Klaus was saying, this can be in terms of the reports that we provide, storytelling, but in the part of the business that I look at, we're looking at two particular areas in particular on here. Continuous feedback. That is feedback in real time, literally 10 seconds after we've interviewed somebody about the process or about the experience that they've just had when going to a car service centre or having just left a car dealership during the sales process. We can feed back into your business within a matter of seconds, and you can see how happy or dissatisfied those customers were. And we can provide this continuously over time so that you can constantly monitor your business, even down to staff levels, so you can start identifying which sales staff or which service staff are performing or not performing, helping it build on your training needs, your coaching needs, and really improving your organisational structure and performance. And we know that it's important that we utilise the technology, because if we talk to research buyers or indeed research providers, and I know the text is a little small on here, but what it's telling us is everybody's seeing a growth in all these different digital or technology-based ways of capturing data. The days of ringing people up and just doing a straightforward interview are somewhat in the past in a lot of respects. The days of knocking on doors or standing on street corners to recruit people to talk to us on your behalf for 10, 15 minutes are slowly being phased out. So one of the things and one of the barriers we often come across when talking about areas such as this is people say, well, you're talking about mobile a lot, you're talking about technology, but we're in Asia, we don't have the population doesn't have the wealth across the whole population to have smartphones, for example. Well, you can see Hong Kong on here, and it probably comes as no surprise to you, but 70% of people in Hong Kong currently have a smartphone. So we're talking Apple, BlackBerry, HTC, etc. And by 2015, it's forecast to be at 80%. So you look across here, you can see what you probably think of as the more developed markets. Japan, Korea, Australia, all having Singapore, all having very high smartphone penetration levels, and this will obviously only continue to grow. But there is also a rapidly increasing growth in what we'd refer to most of the Southeast Asian or South Asian markets, and they will rapidly grow. You can see the projections going up, almost doubling in some instances over the next 2 to 3 years. And especially when we're talking to the automotive market, the main inference, especially in markets such as Hong Kong, but also Singapore, where cars are considered at a more premium level than maybe they are in other markets, the smartphone ownership in Hong Kong amongst car owners, I would guess, is going to be 90% or something. Well, it's probably 95 or 99%. So often a barrier we come across is people say, well, we're not going to be able to connect with people on their mobile. What we want to tell you is this is the way that we can do it now, because pretty much it's universal amongst your market. And the reason mobile is such an important mode for us, and the reason we've mentioned it so many times already in the last 20 minutes, is it enables us to do things such as location-based surveys and event-based surveys. So that we're going back to talking to people immediately after they've had a brand experience. It might not even be within the dealership or the service centre, it might be at an event that your brand is hosting. Let's say your brand is sponsoring, for argument's sake, a golf tournament, and you want to understand how your customers or how people out there are associating your brand with that particular event and what's going on there. We can get immediate feedback. And I'll take you through a case study where we've done exactly that. This is one, obviously, for HSBC, where we just want to show examples of, you can talk to, I know it's a different category, but you can talk to people at different places, whether it's about communications, whether it's about an event, or whether it's the experience they've just had when they've gone into pay in cash into their bank account. We can talk to people the minute that they've done that. And this is just a quote, and I really like this quote because it really nicely explains the benefit of how we can use this sort of work for our clients and make them provide a better service. Again, a different industry, but the same philosophy applies. So we could influence crowd movements and make the event even more fun for our visitors. That's because they were doing things on the move. They were able to change their event, and as I say, I'll show you an automotive example towards the end, where we worked with a manufacturer and they actually changed their whole conference literally live as it was going on, as they got feedback from attendees at the conference, from their customers, and they could look at it and say, this part of the conference isn't working, we need to change this stand or this display, and look at how we're doing this in a slightly different way. So, research is no longer going to be about just giving you loads of data and saying, there you go, you've got to try and work out what it all says. It's about giving you information that can help you make decisions and actually take action within your business. So, both Klaus and I have spoken a lot about the digital side of things and why it's important, and hopefully we've made a case as to why you as brands or custodians should be looking at technology and engaging with it, certainly when talking to your customers. But I now just want to spend a couple of slides just talking about why customer experience is so important in your industry. And this is basically a very poor version of the same customer journey that Klaus showed you earlier on. But here I just want to focus on two particular areas. From the point when somebody decides that they want to purchase a vehicle, to the point when they've done it, they bought it, and then they go for a service, and the influence that marketing has on that decision versus the influence of the actual experience that they have. So when somebody first identifies, becomes aware that they want to purchase a vehicle, marketing is the most influential point. They haven't experienced the brand, they don't know what the brand is about, they're searching for information. But as time goes on and as they get closer and closer to that purchase moment, customer experience becomes more and more vital. They then get to this stage where they purchase the brand and they've had that sales experience. And this is the first point where we really need to start talking to our customers and saying, how did you feel about it? Did it go well? I was talking to Richard earlier on today about my experience when I bought a car 2 years ago in Malaysia. It arrived 6 months later than it should have done. I was really looking forward to it coming, and it just ruined the whole purchase experience for me. I will not go back to that brand again. I'm not going to say who it is in case you're in here, but it was awful. And then I had the delivery experience, and the same, within 24 hours I had to send it back to the garage, and I even had the sales rep, a lovely young lady, but asked me if I could ring her in the morning to wake her up because she sometimes overslept. I'm not going back to that brand again. And that was all at this point here. I'd done my research. I actually really liked the car. But just because of that one moment or that sort of 24-hour period, I'm done with that brand when it comes to next time. So this is where it's really important. And Rich is going to talk to you about how you can talk to people there and feed back into the business the sort of things, the sort of complaints I'd have had. If somebody had asked me, was I satisfied? And I'd have said no. Then they could have called me back and said, I'm sorry, we apologise on behalf of the brand, let's make it better. And then you get the second bump that you can see on here, the service experience. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes 12 months after you've made the purchase. But again, a very important point when it comes to whether you're going to recommend a brand in the future to your family, to your friends. And the reason these two bumps exist is they're actually the only points really when the customer has a human interaction with your brand. Because at all the other points, it's either through marketing communication or it's through your websites, but there's no actual human interaction with your service staff or your sales staff. And this is where you can really make an influence. But it's also where you have the least control, because you can control what ads are out there, you can control what your internet site says or your online site says, but you can't control the sales staff that asks you to ring her up, to wake her up in the morning. And, you know, just the final slide for me is really how important it is to make these customers happy. I really just want to look at these two figures down here. We're basically saying 9 in 10 people will buy their next vehicle. They'll go back to the same dealer they went to. I mean, this has dropped 4 points, which is an issue in itself. But still, 9 in 10 people will go back to the same dealer. But I would also pose the reverse question. That means every dealer is losing 1 in 10 customers. And in this day and age, and with the figures Klaus has showed you since 2008 or so, that's a big proportion of the market. And we need to make sure, if we can even just get it back up to 94, 95%, that's a big gain for every single dealer. So what Rich is going to take you through now is how we actually physically go through the process of doing this.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. My name's Richard. I work in Ben's team, the Viewscast team. And I've just moved to Hong Kong 2.5 weeks ago. So still very much finding my feet. But I'm going to talk to you a bit about Viewscast, which is the tool that Ben has been referring to. Viewscast is our automated data capture platform. And what that means is that the surveys run automatically, and they run via different modes. So, for example, one of them is IVR, which stands for Interactive Voice Response. So that's when you're listening to a survey, a pre-recorded survey, and using your telephone keypad to feedback. Another way is SMS. SMS surveys, pretty short and sharp, but can be instant immediately after their experience. We also run online surveys. Some of the more traditional online surveys whereby we send out emails with URLs included, but also smartphone surveys as well, perfectly compatible smartphone compatible surveys that are compatible with iPhone, BlackBerry, Android devices, etc. And one of the key things about Viewscast is that once the data comes through, once the data is submitted, it's visible and available within the platform within a few seconds of it being out. And what that means is that it really is extremely actionable. Somebody within a dealership or within a business can see that information straight away, and therefore they're in a position to do something about it straight away if something needs resolving. So what this slide is showing you is just how many different areas it can be applied to. For example, what we have along the top here are the different touch points. So we have contact centre, we have showroom, e-channels, website, roadside assistance, and then service. Some of the key touch points across your industry. And then we have the different methods by which people can be surveyed. So I guess one of the key messages here is that it's a versatile tool and can be applied to different parts of the customer journey. So if we look at the contact centre, for example, typically customers will speak to the advisor on the phone, and then they can be passed straight through to an IVR survey, a short, sharp survey, typically about sort of 5 to 7 questions, asking about that customer experience, and it can be done straight away at the point of their experience. It can also be done via SMS, so somebody who speaks to the advisor on the phone, they put down the phone, we can facilitate an SMS being sent to them within a minute or so of them disconnecting, which again means they can feedback straight away. But two of the sort of key areas, I guess, are the showroom and then the servicing. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how Viewscast could be applied in those two specific areas. So one of the ways in which it can work is through a real-time data feed. We've done this with a number of businesses so far, and our technical teams can work with your technical teams just to facilitate a real-time push of information. So for example, if somebody has visited your dealership and their customer information has been captured, that information can be pushed to us straight away, and our automated platform can instigate an invitation to them, which means that just as they walk out the door, they could potentially receive an SMS asking about the experience, or an email, or even an outbound IVR call. But there are other ways in which we can capture the feedback too. For example, one of the key areas is the service or repair, and this can work in terms of we have like an invitation card which can be displayed within the vehicle at the relevant point. In this example, it's displayed on the interior mirror. And it's like an invitation card. It's inviting someone to access a survey and to just give some feedback on their experience that they've just had. Now that could be through phoning a free phone number. It could be through entering a short URL into their phone. And it could also be through QR code, which they could scan on their smartphone, take them directly straight through to a smartphone survey. And generally our recommendation is these surveys are pretty short and sharp, but being a research agency, we can certainly assist in designing it so that it does ask the most effective questions. And one other way would be potentially within the showroom, whereby you could use a tablet, say an iPad or a Samsung Galaxy, and that could be displayed in a particular part of the showroom. Potentially the dealers themselves could actually distribute them to customers. And again, it's an alternative way of them feeding back on that recent experience that they've just had, that interaction. They could even feedback on something like, for example, Audi City that Klaus mentioned. They could feedback on how they feel new technology like that is actually working. Did they find it easy to use? So it can be used as a tool to sort of effectively understand new technology solutions that are in place. And as Ben was talking about, the smartphone penetration is just rising and rising and rising. And we're actually delivering more and more specific smartphone surveys these days. So we do deliver online surveys, but more and more the smartphone surveys are becoming much more pertinent. People are on the move, people are busy, constantly moving around, and it's important to be able to access them and give them the facilities of feedback at their convenience. And this is what we do a lot of. So as I mentioned, the data comes through in real time with Viewscast. It's there immediately. So it could be there immediately for the dealership managers, for example. And the way in which they access it is through an online platform. And we call it View Summary. Now what this allows you to do is to slice and dice the data in different ways. Build your own charts effectively through applying different filters, looking at results over specific timescales, and basically narrowing down in the hierarchy to the specific level that you want. Within the IVR surveys, this also houses digitally recorded IVR comments, so like audio files, where you can actually click on that and you can listen to what the customer has said. And that in itself is a very powerful thing, because you're not just reading what they're saying, but you're actually hearing how they're saying it, and you can really get an understanding for their perception of that experience through listening to those files. You can export charts and you can distribute them around. And you can the access levels are quite spread as well. So, for example, the individual dealership managers would have access to the platform, perhaps the regional managers too, and then of course the sort of central insight team. A couple of key features within View Summary is this one: it's automated email reporting. So, for example, if a regional manager is logging onto the site and interrogating some of the data, and he or she comes across a particularly pertinent piece of feedback that is relevant to a specific dealership, he can just ping that off to them straight away from the site. He can just the chart that he's looking at can automatically be emailed to that individual without him having to take down that information separately and feed it back. So it's quite effective in that way in terms of distributing the key information quickly. Another example is tag clouds. So within our surveys, we always recommend the inclusion of open-ended verbatim comments to really capture the insight coming through from customers and getting the more sort of elaborate feedback in addition to the closed questions that we're asking. And those feedback and those verbatim comments can be loaded into this platform and displayed as tag clouds or word clouds. And what that basically is a sort of visual cloud, a visual display of words with different sizes and different colours, which are directly relevant to the frequency of mention and the sentiment of that comment. So, for example, you've got something bold and green, then you know a lot of people are talking about that particular area and in a positive context. If it's bold and red, then you know that that's something to focus on, because a lot of people are talking about that particular point, but in a negative context. So it's quite an interesting tool in order to really narrow down on some of the key themes that are coming through from customers. And then something that has recently been implemented into the portal is closed loop feedback, or red flags, if you like. And basically, what this is it's quite a hot topic at the moment, and it's an automated notification of a particularly bad experience. So if somebody has had a bad experience within a dealership, for example, and they feed back on that experience, then that will automatically trigger an email to the relevant dealer manager or regional manager, and they would receive that, they would see it, and then they have the facility to be able to contact that customer and follow up with them. So they're making sure that they're turning around unhappy customers. You know, and that's a crucial part of this solution. That's what this solution allows, is to actually pick up on the dissatisfaction and take action straight away to try and turn them around and rectify it for the customer. And that's all from me. I'm just going to pass back to Ben for the final few slides.
Okay, so I think the last slide that Richard showed there, the closed feedback loop, is the particularly relevant part to what Klaus was saying earlier on as well, which is where we start entering a dialogue and a conversation with your customers. Because we all see data, whether it's CSI scores that come back or mystery shopping, and it doesn't look at it on an individual level. As Klaus said, it looks at it on an aggregated level, and you can't actually make any resolution or problem solve individual customers. Now what we can start doing with this is have a conversation with them, and we start recovering or rescuing the customers that have had that really bad experience, like myself, and I won't go back and I won't recommend. But if somebody had called me, then maybe I would have done. So that's a really vital part of what we're talking about here. So I just want to share with you two case studies to show in real life how this is being used. I'm afraid they're debranded because confidentiality issues, but we can talk to you about exactly what it is that we've done. So this particular client, a well-known global manufacturer, wanted to understand the quality. They had issues with the quality that their customers were getting at the service level, both at sales and after sales. So, and then what they wanted to do was be able to remedy the issues straight away, but also drive an improvement in the service levels across the different dealers. So what we did is basically on a daily basis, they would send us information of their customers, both on a business-to-business side, but also on a regular passenger car side, that we were tracking trucks and other areas as well. And through a combination of SMS and online, and smartphone actually as well, what we were able to do is contact these customers straight away and talk to them in the relevant manner that we've been talking about before. And when we say a short, sharp survey, what we're talking, we only ask them 6-7 questions maybe, because we just want to get straight to the point. And we don't want to bother these people either. We don't want them hanging around on the phone or, you know, filling in a survey. I don't think any of you would spend 15 minutes filling in something on your mobile phone, but you might spend 2 or 3 minutes if it mattered to you. And so what we were able to do is basically collect that data, feed it back to the customer or our customer in real time. They were then recontacting these dissatisfied customers and identifying the problems that they had, whether the sales staff didn't know enough about a particular model that they were interested in, whether the service wasn't done on time and when they went to collect their vehicle it wasn't ready. And they could start to remedy these problems, apologise, which actually normally you don't know as clients whether your customer's annoyed or not, so you don't get the chance to apologise. Now you do, because you've actually asked the customer how they felt about it. So this is really, really powerful solution for this particular client. And it, as I say, done on a daily basis. The second one is entirely different use or application of how we use this particular tool. And this is a client who hosts an annual motor show, again a very well-known brand, and it has industry attending, media attending, retail customers, and it takes place over the period of about 5 days. And our client wanted to get the feedback on the different elements of the show and be able to change it and modify it as they were going along so they could improve it and pick up on different areas that people who were attending either didn't understand, or they were dissatisfied with, or they just wanted more information about. So what we did, we had a number of iPads all around the event, and customers were able to walk up and punch in evaluations of different displays, give feedback on different speeches that were given, or the event as a whole. And they're able to tell their experience and give feedback on how they felt about it. At the same time, our client is sat there watching the results come in, literally as they happen, and sending out messages to people in the event and changing what's going on in a live environment. So you can imagine a 5-day annual motor show is going to cost them a lot of money. So they're wanting to maximise the benefits that they get from that, the exposure that they get, and make sure that everybody goes away as happy, as satisfied and inspired as possible. So, you know, this again was a very powerful solution for this client because they were just able to do it like that in real time. So they're just two examples of how this gets used. And I think, you know, just to summarise or to finish up with a couple of words, I think, you know, what this shows is that the way we have to talk to today's customers, your customers, but also any brand's customers, has to be relevant, it has to be interesting, it has to engage them. And by providing things that are relevant in terms of the way we collect the data, the way that we give you the data, and the ability we give you to action it in your business, provides much greater insight and helps customers through that consumer journey to a much better level than before. Okay.
Thank you.